Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Gaming News, where today we discuss more information about Activision Blizzard, and it's incredibly damning, and I can't believe we are at this point in progression of this particular piece of news, but here we are. So I will try to bring you up to speed because I have a lot of tabs open about this particular situation. And of course, it all starts with the Wall Street Journal article. So let's just jump right into that. So, the first thing that you need to know is the Wall Street Journal put out a massive piece talking about Activision Blizzard and just how brutal this situation is, and a lot more details that people did not previously know about Activision Blizzard, about the allegations, and about everything leading up to this point, which is already a mammoth of information as it is. But we're going to go through some of this stuff right now, and I'm going to start off with a GameSpot article. So the headline is Report alleges Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick hid knowledge of misconduct. So a new report from the Wall Street Journal paints a very different picture of Activision Blizzard boss Bobby Kotick than the executive has made for himself. There are documents, including memos and emails shown to the Wall Street Journal, reportedly indicate that Bobby Kotick's knowledge of other accusations made against employees within Activision Blizzard. They also suggest that employees were forced out for allegations and were still publicly praised while coworkers were told not to speak out. This report also alleges that Bobby Kotick threatened to kill an assistant over voicemail in 2006, which is an Activision spokesperson said in jest. It said he, not Activision Blizzard executive and former Bush administration official Francis Townsend, was responsible for drafting a statement on the ongoing harassment and culture investigation that Kotick later himself called tone deaf. The internal statement had been attributed to Townsend. We did actually discuss this on a previous Gaming News Special Edition episode where it did not make a lot of sense, and that Francis, as far as I know, hasn't said much else beyond that. But to now know that Bobby Kotick drafted that statement and then later threw her under the bus to allow her to be the fall person. So we already know he gives zero shits about the people that work for him, as you will find as we continue. And then last week we talked about Jennifer O'Neill, who briefly served as co-leader at Blizzard, reportedly sent an email to Activision's legal team in which she said she was sexually harassed earlier in her time at the company. She also said that at a party that Kotick himself attended in 2007 featured scantily clad women dancing on stripper poles, and that female employees were encouraged to drink more so that the men would have a better time. Make no mistake that this is scummy beyond anything you can ever imagine, and that you are going to pander and cater to your male staff, and that you don't care about the female staff, but yet you're committed to being a model company that people want to work for again, etc., so on and so forth, when you yourself can't even lead by actions and lead by example. You're going to show the world that you are just as bad as everybody else within your company, and that this is right at the top of the chain, and that even the people right below you have been involved in this and have known since the beginning that all of this has stemmed from the fact that you yourself are the worst piece of trash on the planet. Now, if you didn't think this was bad enough, because I know this is enough to just make people scream in frustration, we also came across another news report. This is charlieintel.com talking about Treyarch Studios, which is the head of the Call of Duty franchise. As part of their report, the Wall Street Journal report, Dan Bunting, Treyarch's co-studio lead, was accused of sexual harassment in 2017 in an incident by a coworker. The internal investigation stated that he should be fired for the situation, but Bobby Kotick intervened and helped him keep his job. So the part that I've highlighted is Dan Bunting, co-head of Activision's Treyarch studio, was accused by a female employee of sexually harassing her in 2017 after a night of drinking, according to people familiar with the incident. Activision's Human Resources Department and other supervisors launched an internal investigation in 2019 and recommended that he be fired, but Mr. Kotick intervened to keep him, these people said. After considering potential actions in light of that investigation, the company elected not to terminate Mr. Bunting, but instead to impose other disciplinary measures, said an Activision spokeswoman about the 2017 incident to the Wall Street Journal. Now, this shouldn't come as a surprise, considering that if Bobby Kotick and his staff seem to be the problem, it's strangely not surprising that when you signed on with another franchise with Call of Duty, that you would also foster the same kind of environment so that people would have fun and whatever other reason they may give. Now, this is all very interesting because The Verge covered it, that the rot goes all the way up to the CEO. Gee, I wonder why you've been shredding documentation to show that there is nothing wrong and that you are quote unquote fostering a good community for the industry to look at. Now, of course, other places like Kotaku stepped in and talked about how not only did he know about what was going on, but he was also shitty to women and was reportedly harassing one of his own assistants back in 2006. Because of that situation, he called her and in a voicemail threatened to have her killed. And also then in 2007, Kotick allegedly told a private jet flight attendant who was suing him for sexual harassment committed by the pilot of his jet, "I am going to destroy you." A spokesperson for Activision told the Wall Street Journal that Kotick immediately apologized for the 2006 incident, and Kotick also denied ever telling the flight attendant that he would destroy her. That's a load of shit. So after that, of course, other news places like Ars Technica jumped in and started talking about the issues. Philip DeFranco actually did one of his daily news pieces where he talked about Activision Blizzard, the fact that it's reaching more mainstream media with how big this has become should speak volumes. But if that wasn't egregious enough, here is some more ridiculous things to consider. This is by the gamedeveloper.com. Activision Blizzard doubles down on Kotick defense in all hands meeting. Activision Blizzard's continued defense of CEO Bobby Kotick extends to a live streamed all hands meeting in which leadership addressed pre screened questions from staff, game developer has learned. Sources speaking to game developers say that Activision Blizzard leadership continued to stand by Kotick in that internal call, which took place earlier this morning and wasn't recorded, and tried to address employee concerns about yesterday's damning report by the Wall Street Journal. So everything goes back to the Wall Street Journal. Unfortunately, I cannot show it to you because I am not subscribed, but I will link to a YongYea video that shows the Wall Street Journal in more detail after discussing many of the same details in this video, and definitely check that out. But this all hands meeting was trying to reaffirm that everything is good and that he is not the monster that people are claiming him to be, and it's all the media's fault. So then Game Industry Biz comes in, and the Activision Blizzard board gives Kotick a vote of confidence. Now, the board of directors released a statement affirming its support for their CEO after the employee group ABK Workers Alliance called for his removal. The Activision Blizzard board remains committed to the goal of making Activision Blizzard the most welcoming and inclusive company in the industry, the directors said. Now, this is kind of shocking when you consider what all has been happening. Now, this is where we start to get into the really interesting kick in the teeth situation, where Kotaku reported on Wednesday that after the massive revelations from that Wall Street Journal article, that PlayStation boss Jim Ryan called out Bobby Kotick for being such a scumbag and said that PlayStation boss expressed his disappointment at Activision's response to the allegations. And in an email sent to PlayStation staff, Ryan said he felt disheartened and frankly stunned. And the fact that other game companies and developers, not just the media, but everybody is coming together to say Bobby Kotick should be fired. And as you would expect, the shareholder group calls for Bobby Kotick and board members' resignation. So this is where it starts to get really interesting. This is a Polygon article right here, where because of that report, now the Washington Post reported Wednesday that its shareholders, led by the Strategic Organizing Center Investment Group, requested in a letter to the board of directors that Kotick and the board members Brian Kelly and Robert Morgado retire by December 31st. And they continue, the investment group says in its mission statement that it holds corporations and their leadership accountable for irresponsible and unethical corporate behavior and excessive executive pay, reflecting long-term interests of workers and their families invested in union pension funds. The SOC has previously taken issue with Kotick's compensation, which is among the highest for chief executives in the US. Now, we have previously talked about the pay structure and compensation where Bobby Kotick did take a significant pay cut, dropped it down to $67,000 per year, which is the lowest allowable for his position in the United States, according to law. And he also rejected any bonuses and additional compensation. Now, on the surface, that looks like it would be a good thing and that you're committed to making a difference. But with obviously him being directly implicated in that bombshell of an article, he is going to have a tough time saving face, even at such a low cost instead of the millions of dollars. So Kotaku decided to drop another bomb of their own. Let's meet the board members supporting besieged Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick. So the author of this has decided to summarize some of what has been happening in brief, included the recent statements from the board of directors backing their CEO up. And then what's most telling about this statement and what really lays bare the psychophantic power structures in place among the executive class in the 21st century America is that amidst this PR nightmare, the company isn't even doing the one thing Kotick has always been able to rely on it doing, making people money. And so he goes over the share prices and how they've dropped, and then illustrates a very interesting thing where this screenshot right here that we see is a page from Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book, which you can go look up a lot more details about that if you want to know, but it's very telling that he was in the book. And then Kurtaki goes on to talking about the various board members for Activision. There are certain board of director members that work and have worked with Nestle, who is also incredibly well known for their terrible practices with consumers. And of course, if you want more information about the board of directors, you can find it directly on the Activision Blizzard website. So that is something to keep in mind as well. And then you look at the fact that employees are now really upset about the situation. And of course, this has been continually updated, but over 1,200 Activision Blizzard employees signed petition demanding that Bobby Kotick quit or is fired. And the ABK has definitely been pushing for this more and more in the last few days because of how bad the situation is and how much they are not going to stand anymore. But let's talk about this walkout for a minute. While I understand in principle that this is a good thing, I don't know that it's going to work. Even when you have affiliates like Girls Who Code, who have been partnered with Activision Blizzard since 2018, but because of the allegations, the toxic work environment, and how much that is prevalent in the company, they've decided to end their partnership. And even though there is this massive walkout, I actually don't believe that it will work. And I actually don't believe that Bobby Kotick will be fired. And there is an incredibly good reason for this. Now, I can't take credit for this. This was obviously covered by someone else. Previously, we have mentioned Axios articles on this before, and there have been some incredibly good and useful articles. Obviously, a lot of research has gone into them. And recently, someone that I know was kind enough to link to me a tweet from earlier in the year that leads me to believe that Bobby Kotick will not ever be fired from his position, even with all of the mounting issues. Here is the reason why I believe nothing will actually get done. This is Stephen Totillo, who is a writer of Axios games. This was obviously something he looked into earlier on in the year, which covers the pay amount for the year of 2020. And for Bobby Kotick specifically, this is the values for different types of termination of the company. So if he dies $252 million is what he would stand to receive, or his estate, his family would receive. If it's due to disability, it goes up by $1 million. Terminated by Activision Blizzard for cause. So if there is provable, legitimate reason for him to be terminated from the company, that is the lowest amount he would be paid, which is $264,000. If he is terminated without cause or termination by employee for good reason, he then goes back to $265 million. And finally, termination by Activision Blizzard without cause or termination by employee for good reason following a change of control is closer to $300 million. Now, if you consider the cost of lawsuits, and especially the two of them that are going on right now, and you consider all of the shredding of documents, and you consider that they hired Wilmer Hale to be a neutral third party to entice their staff to go give confidential information to lawyers that would no longer be allowed to talk about that information with other lawyers, especially through the course of investigation. Tell me that isn't him covering his ass so that if he is terminated without cause, he makes a metric fuck ton more money than Activision Blizzard would be willing to pay normally. It would be cheaper for them to go through court and to do the payouts that way than it would be to fire him without cause and have to pay out that much money under contract. Let that sink in. That is disgusting. And the fact that there is so much evidence being brought forward and so many people speaking out, if it cannot be directly proven in court that he knew about these things and was responsible for these things, then the company is more likely to keep him on staff as CEO than fire him because it will cost too much money. If that doesn't disgust you for the week, I don't know what else will. There's a reason it's been a very tough week, and this is exactly why. And now you know that even though we have petitions, even though we have all of these bombshells, that there is a very high chance that nothing is going to be done at this stage, that we're probably going to have to wait until the court proceedings are done and hope that there's enough evidence to show that the company would have reason to terminate his contract for cause so that they would only have to pay $264,000 instead of $292 million. Yeah. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being part of the Patreon. I have more things coming up for you guys in the coming weeks, and I definitely want feedback, and hopefully the content that I provide is interesting and intriguing enough to potentially subscribe in the future. So definitely keep an eye on Twitter. On Twitch, I stream right now once a week, but we'll boost that up hopefully soon. I have obviously Patreon, I have YouTube, and you can join my Discord server at any point in time, and we can discuss all kinds of things about the video gaming industry and just games that you might be excited about. So, with that said, thank you so much for all of your support, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.